When our bodies are in bad, sick posture, you're sick. Bad posture is a signal. And our posture very slowly, usually, without an acute injury, and put this one out, stay on that one. But when we start to lose our posture, our bodies go through a process in histology that they call creep, hysteresis, and set. It sounds bad. It sounds like a Halloween story. Creep, hysteresis, and set. What that means is that as you slowly change your posture and the forces on your spine has a lot of parts to it, musculoskeletal factors that change. The first thing that happens is that ligaments might start to get shorter. Some of the soft tissues, the muscles and the ligaments and tendons, they get a little tighter and shorter. But over more time of bad posture, your bones can start to reshape and the discs can start to wear out. When things become more permanent, that's that set. And that's hard to retrain. That takes maybe decades even of retraining, but at the minimum, it takes a year just to make a change. So we want to start to help you make changes every day to your posture so that we can, number one, maybe stop any further creep in hysteresis. Number two, start to get what still works well and maximize its potential. And three, start to heal and change some of the things that are damaged. So first is stop further decay. Number two, start to train what still works and hopefully stop the body from getting to where it needs to be. But that takes us to be really repetitive and really consistent on a daily basis. Why? Because gravity doesn't take a break. It just doesn't. Gravity does not take a break. It's constantly acting down upon us. And we were built to withstand gravity. Like we were built to be able to hold up against gravity in a natural way and not show any sign of wear for 125 years. Our spine shouldn't show any wear for that long. But we fail to learn how to take care of our spines from birth. We have traumas and accidents that start to bring us into positions that we're not even really aware of until it starts to become something that's changed how we sit, stand, and move. And then gravity starts to put stress that's relentless on the posture of your body. That's when we start to have arthritis and disc problems and other things. And some of that can start as early as birth. So that's why we're here. We're here to undo these problems, make sure that we educate you on what you can do to change some of these things. And your posture is one of the simplest ways to start to make the biggest change for your health. It doesn't cost you extra money. Maybe it costs you a little bit of time, a little bit of energy, but it's something that done regularly can have a profound effect. One research study that I like to always remind everyone about, they took people, I think they were at least 60 to 70 years of age, and they would lay them on the ground. And if their head wasn't able to touch the ground, was at least a couple centimeters above the ground, they marked that group as anterior head syndrome, which just meant that their head was forward to their shoulders and their head wasn't flexible enough to just lay back and they lay on the ground. So they had anterior head syndrome or tech neck, however you want to call it, their heads were forward. They correlated that the people whose heads weren't able to touch the ground had an increased risk of heart disease, which meant earlier death ultimately. So our body's structure affects its function. When our bodies are in bad and poor posture, then that can actually lead to dysfunction when we breathe, the way that we move, our heart's functioning well. I want to do this test together. I want everyone to sit up on the edge of their chair. And I want you to just kind of almost try to like lean back to me, which just means you're going to have kind of poor posture. This is what I want. I want you to just try to raise your arms up. Just try to, yeah, little tough, right? And I want everyone to sit back. I want you to go all the way back. I want your butt up to touch way back in the chair. And I want you to have that more upright posture so that your head's over your shoulders. And I want you to lift those arms again. Huge difference, right? Huge difference. Your shoulders are just trying to be an example for you that your body, your posture is affecting your body. And if your shoulders move better, so do your lungs when you're in this good position. You can get more oxygen in, be more efficient with your breath, and everything else falls right in line. So your shoulders are just a representation of everything else that's affected when you have poor posture. So how do we change our posture? Well, one day at a time, and multiple efforts a day, probably. But there's three aspects of changing posture. Number one, A. A means alignment. We need to start being more aware of how we sit and stand and do our work. When we sit, And from the front, we should have our head should be in the middle of our body, right above our sternum. Our sternum should be right above our pubic. A lot of people like, switch to the side, lean to one side. We don't stay up front. From the side, that ear should go over shoulder, shoulder over head. And when we go and train our balance today, what I want you to remember how important it is to keep the hip underneath the shoulder. Because a lot of our hips are going to slide way in front. Okay, that's the alignment. The ABCs of posture, the B being balance. That's what we're going to train today. When our bodies are in balance, when we can balance, our posture is improved. Our posture is ultimately our body just trying to adapt to the stressors of gravity when we don't have really good feedback from our body because of old injuries and old accidents. So our bodies start to shift and tilt, and they try to balance for you because our body isn't doing balance. So number 2 is B is balance. The C is core strength. Our cores need to be able to support us. And if the more we sit, the more we don't do work that challenges our core with little squats and movements and lifts, it gets weaker. It gets weaker. So if our core is weak, so is our posture. Those are the components. We're going to train them all a little bit today with just our balance training. The beauty of this exercise that I can tell everyone right now is you don't have to spend any extra time in the day doing it. There's something you do every day, probably twice a day, in which I believe you can practice this exercise and not have to waste any more time in your day and say, hey, I need to set aside time to do this. You don't. No, that'll be the key again that you have to wait for. You'll be hanging on every word, so you know how to do this. That is what's the hook? That's a hook. That's the hook. All right. Let's start our balance training. So everyone just stand up with your chair. I want to make sure that you have your chair with you. So anytime you start balance training, it's very important that you do have something you can grab onto right away. If you just, if I just throw this on the floor and say, hey, why don't you stand on it? I'm not wise. Put me in that. Matt's done this a couple times. He knows I like to put him at risk. It's fine. So having somebody's had this clarify that. That's true. You haven't been doing things much. So having something to balance with is key. First thing I want everyone to do, we can just do this test. I'm going to do this timer. I have that back there. So in a moment, what I want everyone to do is try to go on your non-dominant leg. So for me, like I'm right-handed, so I'm also right-footed. Actually, by the way, people can be right-footed and left-handed, but whatever, I don't know. You can see whichever one of you thinks you're dominant. It doesn't matter. But let's just say, and you be careful. All right. But I want then to put like kind of your free foot on your calf. And I just want you to hold that there. Try to hold that there. And try not to hold on if you can. Just see how you feel. You're trying.
The biggest challenge.
I know. So our key is to try to hold for 30 seconds. That was like about 20. You guys can stop. This is another test. They found that as you get older, there's any time in life, if you can do that for 30 seconds, and you can hold there without having to hold on to something, that there's a lot less risk of fall and increased life expectancy. So if your body is in balance, which is basically what that does, is we challenge your system a little bit, and if it can hold that balance on the weak leg for 30 seconds, well, your brain and body are working well, they're communicating. And the better they communicate, the less likely you're to fall. And that increases life, risks of that. So that's a little test. It's 30 seconds on your non-dominant leg of holding without falling back for comfortableness. Okay, so that's your test. So you didn't pass it? Good. That's why we're doing this class. If you didn't pass it, we'll make it better. So first step always is just simply to kick the leg back. So you're just going to bend your knee at 90 degrees and just be like this. That's your first step. And you want to start with holding on if you have, if you need it. So you hold on first and just see how you balance. If you're like, I think I could challenge myself, what you want to do is you're just going to tap the chair. So instead of holding it, just tap it. Tapping the chair gives you feedback so that you don't, then you kind of get a little harder and a little easier, But just remember to tap. I would be tapping. Sorry. There you go.
Martial arts thing says, don't hold on anyone.
So I will try to keep your knee so it's in line with the other knee, just back and kind of have that. Yeah, so you got like this 90.
Okay.
There you go. Because what you're doing is you're using this to try to balance.
Because I'm used to this.
Yes. So that's going to be our next one.
Okay.
We'll get there. But this is the easiest one to do. So if you holding on and holding, that's your easiest balance one. Okay? So it's just step one. So when you first go to start balancing, if that's challenging, just to kick it back, And you have to hold on to it, well then hold. And when maybe after a couple of days, then you can start to tap. But this is the simple position. Number 2 position is the martial arts position. We're going to bring that, once you switch legs in the camera switch, you're going to bring, what we want is that the leg to be at 90 degrees with the floor. We want the lower leg and upper leg to create a 90 degrees. And you're going to try to hold that nice and tall. So when everyone's just lengthen their spine, imagine there's a string attached to the top of your head. You can all hold on to do this. And this way you should have your hip underneath your shoulder, shoulder underneath the head. Good. Good. Yeah, you can put your arm down. Just hold on to it. You're good. Hold on to that. And just imagine like, that head's being lifted. There you go. Good. Good. Great. Good. With what's going on with you, you just be careful.
Yeah.
Hold those hips under the, there you go. See that? That little difference. There you go. Good. That's stacked. You can relax, relax. Here's what usually happens when people start doing this. You might be able to get your leg up, but I see a lot, they're like, okay, I do this like surfing. That's going to put some pressure in the back, which we don't want. And it's also not good posture, right? So when we bring this up, it's very common, even if you think you're straight, you're shifted a little. So when everyone pushes that back, it's like there's a string attached to your head, pulls you straight up. And that is going to stack you well. That's what we want. So if stacking that seems hard, hold on before, and stack, and then maybe do a little tap. If you can stack without, then you just hold. 30 seconds is how long we want to do these for. So if a little wobbly with just this, then hold on, and 30 seconds. I like to use the breath when I do any of these. The breathing is great because number 1, breath work is just relaxing and engages your core. And it has a tendency to help you learn faster what you're doing. It's good. When your brain is challenged somewhat, it learns at a certain speed. When you challenge it in multiple directions, it's like hyperspeed of learning. So breathing is a great way to do that. If we breathe and do our balance, I want you to all focus on the belly breath. Okay? I want you to, let's have everyone put your hands right on your belly for a moment. And I want you to try to push your belly out like a Buddha belly, like someone's going to punch you and tighten it up. I want to see your hands push out. Hands push out. Relax. Jay, I feel like you're trying to suck in like this. I want you to try to push out this way. There you go. There you go. Good. Now relax. Now, what you try to do is breathe in the nose and push out to the belly, like you're filling your belly up with air. You should feel pressure on your hands when you breathe in. Then when you breathe out, suck the belly button to the spine. Breathe in. Push the belly out. You're tightening all the way around. Breathe out. Second belly. It's hard to do, right? I'm going to say those hands are moving a lot over there. So one way you can relax, to train this, relax, you put a belt around yourself. Kind of tighten it. When you breathe in, the belt should expand. When you breathe out, suck it in. That's some. So this is the key is expands out and then if you can do that while doing this, hyper learning. 3 to 5 of those breaths while doing this is about 30 seconds. Okay? So just remember that. First step, just hold. Second step, tapping. Third, leg up, hold. Tapping. Then you start to breathe. If you can feel like you don't really need to tap, then that's when you're allowed to hold without tap. Make sure you're tall. Key is really keeping that tall. These are the keys of balance. So, see here, the best position you can be in is that last one you showed me there. But to challenge yourself more, let's say that you get to the point where you can hold that there, and it's really not that challenging for him. Our brains love a challenge. They want to be confused a little bit. Our brains do. So you get to a point where you can hold there without holding on to anything. You hold your hand up and you breathe. Well, then you probably need to get on a surface that's a little bit unstable. The first surface that I would suggest for everyone, as wild as this sounds, that's unstable, is just your carpet. Your carpet has a pad underneath there, it actually makes it a little bit harder to balance. Just that little bit of padding and a little bit of carpet. So that would be your first step, would be like going from a harder surface to carpet. Should you do this in your shoes or bare feet? Bare feet are wonderful to challenge and get feedback. Some people might not be in great shape, and the shoes might actually give you better balance. Right now, I'm more concerned about the balance than the shoes or no shoes. But I think I'd like to see it in bare feet if possible. Really gripping the ground and just feeling everything all the way out. The carpet would be step one of the next challenge. The next past step would be maybe rolling up the towel and standing on the towel, even a little more unstable on the surface. Or maybe even like a cushion off the couch. You can almost stand on it, but it's like low quality. The last would be kind of using the balance disc if you have that at home. Okay? That would be kind of the most advanced. With this one especially, it's like there's just no good center. So to stand on that is quite hard. You need to do that. But you can kind of find your places. But it's going to be something where your body can really find center and then brings it up and holds that. But you wouldn't really do that unless you can be on the towel or cushion and really not wobble a lot. Right? Then you're going to listen. You might never get to this, and that's totally okay. But we're always trying to challenge ourselves. I don't typically talk about it, but if you really wanted to roll all back, then you can start closing your eyes and doing it as well. There is a good test for you with the eyes closed to see how quickly it might just even start to move, because that will let you know how much your eyes are supporting the process. Okay, when we adjust you and we try to help you bring communication to your feet and back, ultimately we want that flow of those nerves to be as efficient as possible even without your eyes. So some people would say that 30 seconds eyes closed is the gold standard. But most tests or most studies usually use eyes open, but just an unknown way. So eyes closed is the next challenge. I don't like to recommend that. I don't want to get lawsuits. So, but that is something to do. The biggest thing is hold on.
See, I'm thinking blindfold, that way you're not concentrating on trying to keep your eyes closed, because like I'm awake, I want to open my eyes. So I'm thinking blindfold, then I just can't see.
Then if you drive real fast, you back up and cover. Or you use your eclipse.
You use your eclipse glass. You kind of peek out the bottom if you need to. You can find a use for them instead of sending them down to the next eclipse area. So I think if you take away your eyes, you definitely give them more channel. Right now, I'd like you to challenge the surfaces more than the thumbs. The core is going to be absolutely part of this process. Remember, if my core is a little weak, we're probably going to, fly forward. The tighter and stronger that is, the more you can breathe and not move. And that's the key, is to keep that core strengthened. This is one way to really work alignment, balance, and core all the time. How often do you do something like this? Every day. Any thoughts on when you could do it in your normal routine?
Kitchen sink.
Kitchen sink. There you go. Yeah, doing your dishes or something.
I'm behind the desk all day at work. Now since this happened, I've been raising my desk, and sometimes I'm sitting typing like this, sometimes I'm standing up, so I can do it.
You just kick it back a little bit while you're doing it. Huh? Absolutely.
I just raise my desk a little higher and hold on.
Yeah, I like to give you the challenge that if somehow you don't do it during the day, you can do it when you brush your teeth. You got 2 minutes of brushing your teeth, so you could go 4 rounds in there, 2 rounds on each side, but you do it twice a day, and that is something where I like to use it as a pattern interrupt. And when we try to develop new habits, we need something that's going to remind us to do it. It doesn't just like tomorrow all of a sudden you're going to remember to do this, unless number one, you're really motivated, I was really inspirational, or somehow you change your habits that you do throughout the day. And so every time you see your toothbrush, it might remind you, oh yeah, he's a toothbrush and balance, and you start to put those together. Like when you stack habits together, there's a book called Atomic Habits, really stacking. So you might do one good habit, you can stack this habit too, right? But if you don't do it that, maybe you put a little note at your desk that just says balance, right? So that when you're grazing by it, you see that a couple times a day, you can do it. But you have to have something, a note, an alarm, something that you work into a routine you're already doing that's going to make you change some of these things. Balance is just one of them, right? You might need to get up a little earlier to do these routines we ask you. You might need to do something, before you get back into whatever routine is, we just sit down and you're done the day, you gotta change things up. So changing our habits is much harder than me teaching you what to do. What to do is easy. Keeping it consistent is the hard thing. Keeping it consistent. There's a story that reminds me of just how the effort you put into things pays off. There's a story about an old farmer, and he had a very, very productive farm. He was hardworking, he knew what he was doing, and he continued to improve his farm over the years. So he eventually got sick. And the farmer, almost on his deathbed, had his two sons there. And of course, they were too good for the farm. They worked in the city, they were doing good things. And he was on his last breath, and he said, "There's a treasure here." And then he died. And the family mourned his death. And had his funeral. And a couple months later, the boy said, "There's a treasure here. Let's find this treasure." So they went with all the technology they could and everything, and they just started digging up. They just started looking for this treasure. Luckily, they didn't disrupt everything, but they found nothing. There was no. They said, "Oh, Dad, maybe he was just losing it. Didn't know what he was talking about. There's no treasure here on this farm." And about 6 months later, the farm produced the most luscious and impressive crop yield. And the point is that sometimes we're looking in the wrong places. And sometimes we don't give things time. When we put in the time and the effort to plant the seeds of health and vitality, it will grow and mature into something. But we might not see the fruits right away. And the fruits of our labors are not usually seen, especially when it comes to prevention and getting better. The fruits aren't seen so quickly. They take time. Just like it took time for that farm to develop the treasure that's there. We all have treasures inside of us that want to grow, but we've got to water them, we've got to grow them, and we've got to cultivate them. If we don't do and change our habits on how we move, we don't change in how we do our exercises, we're not going to produce those fruits. But tonight is just a way to say, hey, there's simple things to do. We know you can do them. And it's probably not an immediate process, right? You just remember these things. Every week, we're trying to bring something to the table that just makes you think. I don't expect you guys to change everything in your life tomorrow. But I'm going to do my best to train, to learn more things. But just being in the conversation is how healing happens. The best healers are inside. You just got to make that to express themselves. Any questions about balance?